Hello and welcome back to another episode. If you want to do what today, I've got Dec Penfold on, and he is the founder of Dex Kitchen. Hi, Dec. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, Daniel. Daniel, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Well, like I said before we jumped on here, we've not really had anyone in this industry on the podcast before, so I'm really interested to find out how it works, how you got into it, and what it is really.
Shall I start from the beginning almost?
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've worked in food pretty much my entire career and life, and I've always been sort of very passionate about food. And yeah, the first job I ever had was in a Thai restaurant, washing pots and prepping food,
I love Thai food. That
which
must have been incredible.
it actually really was. I don't think I quite appreciated it at the age of four. I think I was 14 and 15. I think I did
Wow.
2 summers working there. Um, and I think I look back at it now and actually, I kind of remember that was at the time it was one of the best Thai restaurants in Wales.
Oh, wow.
And it was one, had won a bunch of accolades across the UK for its authenticity and stuff like that. And I was just working, washing pots and making a bit of money, doing something I thought I enjoyed.
Mm.
So yeah, I kind of that was my first introduction into the industry, and I kept from there. Everything I ever did work related was with food, whether it was working in a pub, just working, on a section, learning as I went. Whether it was learning how to stretch pizza and working in proper Italian restaurants. Um, I ended up out in France doing what I planned to do a ski season, and ended up running a hotel from a kitchen,
Wow.
which was a pretty full on experience. So yeah, so every job I've ever had has been in food and hospitality, and that's sort of made me realize once I went to university, I went to go and do a media communications degree.
Hmm.
No idea what I wanted to do, and I was also working in restaurants, working in food still, and just a way to make money is something I enjoyed. And then the sort of first job when I came out of university, back working in a hotel, working in a kitchen, and then I was working in restaurants to sort of enjoy my time. Setting up a stand up paddleboarding school with my best mate in North
Wow.
Wales at the age of 21. So quickly learned how to run a business in poorly and successfully. We sold the business for a profit, which is great, but the whole time I was doing that, I was also working in restaurants. So it was a pretty full on time. And then moved to London and fell into restaurants once again. Working in some larger sort of restaurant groups in QSR, sort of getting a range of different knowledge of the industry. So I've not just worked in one cuisine. I've not just worked at one level. I've worked at lots of different levels, trying to sort of really broaden my understanding of the industry.
Hmm.
And I went to work for a hotel at the time that was taken over by a small restaurant group called Copper Club. And I ended up becoming their opening chef and was opening restaurants for them all over the UK, which was an amazing experience, and
Yeah. Wow.
was also a head chef with them as well. So by the age of 26, I was a head chef running multiple restaurants, opening restaurants with big budgets, working on big menus, working in menu development, and found myself very quickly doing a lot of things that I didn't think I'd be doing at the age of 26, 27, responsibility
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah. I
In
mean,
fact, I might
you.
have been 25, 26 actually. So yeah, and I think I wouldn't say I got burnt out, but I wanted to explore something else
Yeah.
within the industry, and found myself working in the supply chain. So luckily, a school contact of mine ran a very sort of high end food supply company called Wellux. I ended up going to work for them as a business development manager, running, I think it was 160 restaurants across sort of London and the southeast,
Wow.
of which, again, massively out of my depth. Uh, Knowledge of food helps, and knowledge of kitchens helps, but dealing with some of the best chefs in the country is also quite a daunting task. Having them call you up at any time of the day, any day of the week, screaming why their asparagus didn't come in, or why their truffles weren't good enough, and this, and it was. But again, an amazing experience to work with awesome ingredients, and basically walk into the back of some of the my idols' restaurants, and sit down and talk to them about produce, which is really interesting.
Very cool.
And then I was really luckily. headhunted to go and work for Deliveroo. And I sort of jumped at the opportunity to get back into a kitchen in a slightly different environment as a development chef. And to be honest, that was the biggest turning point in my career right now because of the business I was working for and the experience that I gained from that. Tell me if I'm talking way too much, by the
No,
way,
no,
if
no.
I'm
Yeah,
ruining
this is
all of your other
perfect.
questions.
No, no, no.
Um,
Perfect. Yeah.
and yeah, so I ended up going to Deliveroo and working as a development chef for them. And we were there, small team of us, a big range of different caliber of chef. You know, we had two or three 1 and 2 Michelin star sous chefs that were working
Wow.
with us. I had a more QSR and sort of pub group background than they did. So there's quite a nice blend of us when it came to creating menus. And we made, I think it's 26 brands over 10 different cuisines in total.
Wow.
Um, and this was a very, very quick process in creating all of these brands to try and test them and see what the market would do with, uh, see how the market could deal with like cross cuisine kitchens, with expensive food, cheap food, complex food, simple food to make. You know, all the operational things that were required in kitchens, like how we could stress test that. And we basically made some really cool brands, some really cool like virtual restaurants
Hmm.
that only sat on delivery platforms. And we also made loads of mistakes. And I think that's the biggest, like one of the biggest things that we were able to do was we were allowed to sort of make those mistakes and really learn what was good and what was not with that part of the industry.
Sure.
Um, and then from that, I then sort of progressed into a slightly different role within the business and was then um, almost like training, building all the training materials for these virtual brands, and then we were also scaling and launching those brands with partners globally. So we were
Wow.
going to hotels, restaurants, pub groups, and giving them these concepts and helping them add additional revenue streams to their kitchens. And this was all pre-COVID,
Mm.
so it was still a very new industry and still a very um, unknown part of the food world, which today now is a very common thing within restaurants.
I was going to say,
Um,
I'm completely unaware that this whole part of the food industry even exists. So this is all new to me. It's
mm,
fascinating that you create menus and create restaurants, and it doesn't necessarily go in my head. And this is probably very naive. Somebody opens a restaurant and they design a menu, and there you go. They get on, they run that restaurant, but that's not necessarily the case, right? There are massive groups that open restaurants. They do different things. There's different business models. It's not all
mhm.
just, I'm a chef. I've had an idea. I'm going to open a restaurant. That's not the case, is it?
I mean, it's the case for some people,
Hmm.
and for some people it works, and for some people it doesn't. Um, I'd say there's less success in the people that just have an idea and think, "Oh, I like food. This, I'm good at this. Let's
Hmm.
go open this place." There is a need for experience and knowledge within the market to be able to succeed.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're right. Like there is lots of different ways in which it can be done, and the stuff that we were doing was so unknown to people that the term virtual brand still is not a very common sort of term within the industry,
Hmm.
but sort of dark kitchen, ghost kitchen, delivery only brands, like they're what people sort of perceive as, I think, especially back then, where food being cooked out of a trailer in a parking lot just outside North London. That's kind of how people perceived delivery food to be
Yes.
coming.
Yeah.
Whereas, actually you look at it and how we knew there was purpose-built kitchens that could facilitate, anywhere from 6 to 20 different restaurants, 20
Wow.
different kitchens that could run anywhere from 1 to 6 or 7 brands out of one kitchen. So
That's
suddenly you could,
incredible.
one building, a normal size sort of industrial building would be taking, yeah, would have 10 kitchens in there, and each one would have an average of 3 or 4 brands. There's a lot of restaurants sat in that small building, only available on delivery. And it means that they're able to really capitalize on a low rent because they're using a smaller space. Um, Especially right now, like having to spend less money on utilities, like all of those things. It's a quite an interesting business model for people to have adapted to over the last couple of years.
It's really
And
interesting to sort of hear you say that as well, because again, I don't think anyone will have ever thought about this. That's, maybe people were thinking of going into the food industry, and this is, like you're saying, this is pretty brand new stuff.
Mm,
And even people, like content creators like the Sidemen are now looking at the industry and going, oh, actually, we could have our own kind of restaurants and do this kind of thing as well. So
yeah,
if people like that are looking at it, it's obviously a really interesting, exciting part of the food world.
yeah, it is really exciting, and I think I've been lucky enough that I've been involved in it for this part of the food world. I mean, generally the food world for a long time, but this part of the food world for a lot longer than most people have. That having that opportunity at Deliveroo to learn all of those things and make those mistakes and be part of the industry from the start, pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
has allowed me to work with businesses all over the world doing this. With my consultancy, Dex Kitchen, I actually did all the food for the Sidemen's brand sides.
Oh, you did?
um,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah,
How
yeah, yeah, yeah.
cool.
So I collaborated with them. It would have been, gosh, over 2 years ago now, and hosted a few tastings with them. Allowed them to sort of share what they wanted to eat, and their flavors. And the concept was a lot more complex originally.
Mm,
It was a lot more chefy. It was a lot more sort of restaurant focused. We knew we were going to do delivery, and then there was a lot of other parties that became involved within the actual process of it all. I
sure.
ended up then working for those guys and then building the concept out alongside them. But the food itself, is there's still some of the raw stuff that we did do 2 years ago, which is quite cool. Some of the sauces and some of the recipes that we delivered in a kitchen in East London for them are sort of still apparent today. Now being made in a central kitchen and distributed all over the world. But yeah, it's cool. Like it's a really quick, adaptive part of the industry that people are really capitalizing on, and not just people who don't not know food. That's not the right term, but people of any sort of industry and any sort of background that have that pull are able to use it to bring in sales basically through food, like what the Sidemen have done. And there's
Sure.
plenty of other examples across the world that people do now.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I think, and not to put hospitality and food in the same kind of space, but when you're first at school or when you're at school or college or university, you don't ever really think about that industry. You maybe think, oh, I'll go and be a chef, or I'll go and be front of house, or
Mm-hmm.
I'll go in and be a waiter, or whatever they're thinking. But actually, what we're talking about here is a really exciting other aspect to the industry that, I mean, you sound like you're an entrepreneurial guy. You started a paddleboarding school, and you sold that, and you've worked in the industry for a long time. So it sounds like if you're, into your food and you like your business, it's a perfect time to get into this kind of world.
Yeah, it is. It is, and there's a lot of people do. I mean, I'd always toyed with the idea of going to catering college, and a friend of mine at school, he chose that route. We all chose university. He chose catering college, moved to London, did a big stint in London working in fine dining, and then now he runs a really successful catering business up in Yorkshire called Co Catering. And I always kind of look back to him and think, God, I kind of wish I went down that avenue, to learn the sort of the basics at that age. But at the same time, we chat regularly, and you realize that actually we're doing two completely separate things, but working in the same industry, and they're also so completely different.
Mm,
A lot of what I do is creating sort of food right now. I mean, I work with businesses all over the world doing different things, but from a delivery food point of view, it's creating menus that can be scalable, that can be operationally simple, and that can be delivered by pretty much anyone, without and having consistency across every single restaurant that they go into. It's
mm,
almost kind of like how McDonald's or KFC or Burger King would be creating dishes. They have to be streamlined, simple, and easy to do and replicate.
mm.
So you kind of really strip and simplify everything, which is sometimes quite hard for a chef to do because you're used to trying to do things in a process that you've been taught, whether you're classically trained, whether you're sort of cooking a type of cuisine, and then you're being told to really strip everything back and not make a sauce from scratch and use the best alternative, to really make sure that dish is foolproof and consistent. And so yeah,
Mm.
like I think there's there would have been huge learnings from going to catering college at 18. Um, but at the same time, I don't regret doing what I did. I got to go to university and have a good time basically and do a degree that I've not used. Well, I'd say I've used elements of it, but I've not necessarily used it. Met some of my best friends at uni, and like it was still a great experience. But I just kept finding myself drawing back to food, and quite clearly that's something I'm going to do for a very long time because it's something I'm still enjoying doing, and I've luckily forged a business out of it somehow.
Yeah, I mean that's all you can ask for, right? But
Mm.
as you know, you started this Dex Kitchen.
Yeah,
What was the decision sort of process around starting that? And what, were you nervous, or did you think, actually, I've got all this experience now. I know the right people in the industry. I'm just going to go for it.
yeah. I mean, it was kind of a very quick decision. We were in when COVID hit in March 2020. We'd obviously all gone into a lockdown, and everything was changing. And one of the biggest things that was happening in the food world was restaurants couldn't open physically, so they had to open virtually. And we were inundated at Deliveroo with requests for brands, whether it was to create new brands, whether it was to use our current brands that we created, our virtual concepts. And I sort of, Deliveroo as a business went through a lot of changes that year. The divisions were sort of shrunk and divisions were merged and all of this sort of stuff. And I just saw it as an opportunity that I knew that what we were doing as our team, and our team was sort of dissolved slash merged into another team. I saw it as an opportunity to go out on my own and do something that we were already doing, as did quite a few of my colleagues. Interestingly, we all kind of went and did some similar things. And my first client was absolutely nothing to do with food delivery. Um, so I sort of fell into something that fell into the consultancy work, as in working for Dom Kulzatig, who was the founder of Street Feast.
Okay, yeah.
And I did some really cool projects with him. We did a virtual food festival where I was calling up all of my restaurant contacts and trying to get them to create meal kits with us and do food delivery through this virtual festival.
Wow.
And then I opened a restaurant with him. Did a food market with Selfridges for food trucks. Arranged all of that. Um, and I worked with some incredible chefs. We brought in two really really good chefs to the tram shed, which was a sort of, I think it was 9 months in total. In between leases, Dom got the rights to the actual restaurant, the iconic tram shed in Shoreditch,
Hmm.
which has the cow in the box. I can't remember. That's really bad. I should really remember what that's called. Um, used to be the Hicks restaurant, and we got that for 9 months, and we brought in some really good chefs and did some really cool things in there. That was a really cool experience, opening a restaurant from kind of scratch in a way.
You are living a
Something I,
food lover's dream, aren't you?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
I do
that
look
is
back at it
cool.
sometimes and go, yeah, that's actually pretty cool that I got to
Yeah.
do that. And yeah, and then I sort of started to find some clients that wanted to do food delivery, creating these virtual brands, and that gave me the opportunity to get more creative, get in the kitchen again properly, developing recipes, developing menus, developing end-to-end stuff, helping out, pulling in all different other contexts that I had when it came to branding and marketing, when it came to social media, all of that. I was able to then build a network of these professionals within their own fields. And now when people come to me to ask for this, I'm not just don't have to do it all myself. I pull in the experts that can do all of those things, and I focus on what I'm good at.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm lucky that I've built a small team of consultants that I can rely on. I've got two really, really good chef consultants that I work with on creating and executing these menus with clients. And yeah, kind of stem from there. I work with three or four of the biggest virtual brand businesses in the UK. Worked with two out in Dubai. I had a client in Japan, Australia, looking at different people around New York
Wow.
at the moment. And yeah, so like it's been a real whirlwind and a really fast paced 2.5 years is what it's been. I actually did a networking drinks on Tuesday night to
Hmm.
celebrate 2 years of Dex Kitchen, and
Oh, wow.
like 20. I think I only invited about 20, 30 people, and I think 18 people turned up, which I thought was a hell of a good
Yeah.
a good go, especially with all the rain that was happening in London. And that was a great way to like really look back and see, how much I'd done over 2 years and who I'd done it with, and that those people are still there supporting me, whether they're past clients, current clients, future clients. And it was really nice, and I sort of good to do something like that because I don't get to do that often. I don't get to look back and see what I've actually done because it's fast paced. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard work running your own business and being. We've got a 5-month-old son, so my
Oh, wow.
partner is at home looking after him every day, and I'm there, trying to go out and hopefully not lose any clients. So I can still bring some money home.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a real whirlwind, but like an incredible experience to that I get to look back on every now and then and really see, how yeah, maybe I am living a food lover's dream.
Yeah.
But you got to work hard for it. You got to
Yeah.
put in the hours for that sort of stuff.
I'm sure there's, you have your good days and your bad days, but
100%.
I mean, I'm just really interested by this because I think, like we said earlier, you always think of the food and drinks industry as one thing, and we're talking about a completely different thing, and to me, a very exciting thing where you can combine your love of food and your love of this new kind of business that's
Hmm.
coming out of nowhere. Now, anyone listening to this and thinking, "Do you know what? I'd actually really love to do something like that." Is there a clear cut career path, or how do you even begin to go into this?
I think for me, I think learning both sides of that, learning food and learning business through experiences was what how I've done everything. But there's some extremely successful people out there that have completely changed industries and followed a passion. And because of their knowledge of other industries, so someone that works in finance or banking might be really into their food, and their passion is therefore them to go and create a food business or an industry, create a brand or a restaurant or something just because of their passion. Their knowledge from another industry can massively aid it, and I've seen success with a lot of people doing that. I don't think you have to have all of the experience in everything that you're doing. I think that I mean, that's where I'm quite beneficial that they hire people like me to help them do those things. But that's the thing I kind of believe in, is finding the right people to deliver those things. I do think there's um, more opportunity in succeeding in something that you're passionate about as well. Lots of people within the food industry, lots of people that cook in kitchens. It's a lot of the time it would start as like it did for me. It was a way of making money. It was easy. You don't have to talk to anyone, do much. You just get given a section, a knife, a chopping board, and off you go. And it's a really easy thing to either fall into, but it's also a really easy thing to fall in love with and find your own passion through it. So I think in a way, there's not really a right or wrong answer to what you're asking. I found that having a passion and shared experience in both of those things allowed me to do what I've done.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't write off anyone else who is passionate enough about getting into food that
Mhm.
they would be able to use their other experiences to really benefit what they did.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And for you, what's been the biggest positive throughout this whole kind of journey? What do you think? Sit there and think, "Wow, that was fantastic. I'm so glad I did this."
I think I'm the sort of person that, and we you got in touch through LinkedIn. I'm the sort of person that even if something isn't important or relevant, I will still get in contact with that person or respond back to that person. So I think being open and being honest and sort of sharing your experience and knowledge is crucial in this sort of thing. And I kind of like to pride myself on the fact that if someone gets in touch with me or wants some help or something, I will do my best to help them. So I think like for me, yeah, being able to always be there and sort of respond to people has always been something that I've been quite passionate about doing.
Sure.
And the main reason why that is important to me is because that's what brings me new business. That's what lets people know that's how I let people know what I'm doing. And
Mm,
I'm able to sort of then share what I've done, my experiences, and then benefit from that as well in the future.
of
But
course,
if
yeah.
there's people I've worked with, I've charged absolutely nothing to. People I've come across that I believe in what their product is, and I've put in lots of hours for them free of charge. Like because I'm passionate about what they're doing, I want to see them succeed. But I couldn't do that. They wouldn't be able to succeed if people like me couldn't do that for them. And I feel like I've had that from other people. I've had that support from mentors and people in the past that I've been
Mm,
able to you know, I'm glad that I can go and do that myself. But I think not turning down opportunities for me has been the biggest success. And my partner Ella, who's supported me this entire time doing this business, she's the one that's always also pushed me to do that and to not say no to a meeting and not say no to a new opportunity. And yeah, I think a lot of it's driven from past experiences, upbringing, education, and actually grafting and doing a job as well.
Yeah.
But still, like you've got to have the energy and the support to be able to go off and say yes to everything, and eventually, if there's enough yeses that happen and something comes of it. So yeah, I think being open and being honest and available to people has been a big benefit to where I've got to today.
Sure. And on the flip side of that, what's been the biggest challenge you faced so far?
Um, I think I think working virtually a lot
Mm.
has been a big challenge, but I think something that I've had to really transition quite quickly into. Obviously, we all did that during lockdown, and I mean, I was launching 2 or 3 concepts in Australia in Melbourne, while sat at my kitchen table in Shoreditch.
Wow.
Um, so quite quickly, when all of that hit, we all kind of learned how we could actually train and deliver how to build recipes and how to make things and how to operationally succeed in a concept from a computer screen.
Yeah.
So I learned quite quickly. I still think there's been a big challenge to do that all the time, which is why I've got people on the ground that can deliver those things. I've recently moved to Auckland in New Zealand, where my partner's from, and we come back every couple of months to the UK for work, for family, that sort of stuff. Her family's
Wow.
here as well. So that's been I'd say a hard transition, but also at the same time, makes you really think how much you can actually get done on the wrong side of the world when you've
Yeah.
got clients in the UK. But yeah, again, that's why my network and the people that I work with and consultants that I'm working with are so important to my business on a day to day, to be able to deliver and be there in person. But I'd say, yeah, biggest challenge is that the whole virtual working. But I
Yeah,
think
that's
I've
taking working from home to another level, isn't it?
yeah,
Jesus.
and I think I say this to clients a lot. I'm like, if I can, help you succeed and do what you want me to do when I'm 13 hours ahead, I think I can do it in person, or even if I'm only 6 hours ahead. So
Yeah.
it shows that you can do what I do from anywhere and travel and enjoy yourselves. I mean, we're not been traveling much at the moment, obviously, but
Sure.
um, it's yeah, that's been a big challenge, the whole virtual aspect. But I think I've really, I feel I've done a good job in really capitalizing on it and doing helping my clients actually succeed from anywhere.
Yeah, no, definitely. And would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
Um, I That's a good question. I think because of the passion I have for it, I think probably yes. Um, I think it's a harder industry to get in at the moment because of, especially in the UK, with the whole um, the actual hiring of chefs and the recruitment process, the food cost, and all of those sorts of things is so different to how it was a few years ago. It doesn't look very attractive for some people, but I think for me, it's the passion within food that would always drive me back to this sort of industry. Even if it wasn't directly in restaurants and being a chef, I still think I'd be involved in the industry in some capacity,
Mm.
for sure.
Well, Dec, it's been an absolute pleasure hearing all about your story. It's genuinely been really fascinating for me. I'm a big foodie, so I think what you're doing is really cool, really interesting. And thank you for taking the time to have a chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been it's been nice talking about myself.
And where can people find you and your business?
So through LinkedIn, you can look for Dex Kitchen on LinkedIn or Dec Penfold is myself, or I've got an Instagram as well, Dex Kitchen, yeah, or my email address, which is on all of those platforms as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dec.
No worries. Thanks a lot, Daniel.